a friend of mine who's actually on here, Tanya, shared these drops with me, and she talked about them being a natural GLP alternative. Honestly, I didn't believe that. Anybody else heard this message first and like, no, there's nothing natural that could do that. That was me, right? I'm like, I tried different peptide, natural peptide versions, um, and honestly, I didn't see anything. I didn't experience any benefits that I noticed. I certainly didn't lose any weight, which I needed to. Um, and so when because she's my friend, right? We do that for our friends. I'm like, okay, I'll get some drops and I'll try it. So this was over Christmas, okay, and into New Year. How many eat their best in Christmas and New Year? And then the next week was my birthday, and so needless to say, over this time was not the best time to test drive a weight loss supplement. Now that's much more than a weight loss, and that's what we're going to talk about. But that was my impression of what this was. And so I tried it over this time, got on the scale after my birthday, just hoping maybe it had slowed down how much weight I did gain. Right? That was my hope. When actually I ended up losing 2 pounds over that time. And I'm like, wait a minute. This shouldn't have happened. How did this happen? This has never happened to me before. And so I said, send me more information, right? And so that got my attention. And as I looked at the clinical studies, as I looked at these unique pathways that this supplement can signal, it got me excited. And I started utilizing it not only myself, my family. As a doctor, a good doctor, I guinea pig me and the family first before patients, and then started utilizing with a handful of patients and then more patients. And I'm just got more excited the more feedback I was getting. And and so I'm excited to share that with you today. So I'm going to pull up my screen if I can and show you just a few slides. All right, so we're going to talk about three pathways. We hear about GLP-1 all the time. That's the most popular drug on the market right now. Um, and it was originally or developed for diabetes, right? It was never meant to be a weight loss drug. And so GLP-1, we think, is this, right? This in our mind, that GLP-1 is something to do with this. Honestly, but the truth is it doesn't have anything to do with injections. GLP-1 is a natural pathway. It's a natural peptide. It's a natural hormone in our body. So is GLP-2, so is GIP. So what does this do? Well, this forces, with a synthetic made peptide, forces activity on these specific receptors in the body. Does that make sense? And so it acts like the same version that's already in our body. So um, let's see here. They call that an agonist, a GLP-1 agonist. And so the that's how it acts in the body. Of course, it has its fair share of side effects, right? Anybody had a friend or personally that's had side effects with some of the GLP-1 injections? 32% that start this stop within the first year, usually either due to price or due to side effects. One of the things that I'm worried about and seeing as a physician is that certainly can help with weight loss. But what I'm seeing is up to 40% of that weight loss is what? You guys already know the answer to that is muscle. Okay. That's worrisome, right? Because if people gain weight back, which they often do after coming off the injections, especially if they haven't made any lifestyle changes, and that's powerful. These drugs are powerful enough to make you lose weight, regardless of how you're eating. Sadly, that's not a good thing, right? And then after you stop the injections, if you're still eating poorly and have a poor lifestyle, of course, what happens? We gain all the weight back. But guess what happens to that 40% of muscle loss? Do you think it's replaced back with muscle? No, right? It's replaced back with more fat. And what does that help? What does that do to the metabolism of that person? 40% less, or of the weight loss, 40% of that being muscle. Now that is gained back in fat. Are they better off metabolically or worse? They're worse, right? And that's a scary thing. And but that's what we're seeing, and and it's not good. And it starts to become something that the person then thinks they have to do forever, right? And continuing to create metabolic reliance on an injection. And and in my opinion, this shouldn't be a long-term approach. Sorry, I got off track, got on my soapbox there. But GLP-1 is the pathway they oftentimes call the appetite whisperer. It's involved in insulin secretion, blood sugar balance, appetite and satiety. This is the one that shuts down that food noise. Anybody else have that food noise, especially in the evening? This is when it happens to me. When you're not really even hungry, but your body says, "Hey, go look what's in the cupboard, right? What's in the cabinet? What can I snack on at this time of day?" It quiets that food noise, allowing you to have control over your appetite rather than your appetite controlling you. And I love that part about this. It does gently slows down gastric emptying, right? If things aren't moving through us as quickly, then of course that's easier to be full, right? And reduce portion size. Um, Oftentimes called the appetite controller. But what I like about this, rather than forcing and overriding physiology, this technology here supports the physiology, supports those signals, not override or driving those signals. All right. So then we have the GLP-2, the core shield. I like to think of it as the gut repair crew. This is maybe my favorite pathway of the three that this impacts because I'm seeing so many dramatic improvements, not only in my own health, but in my patient's health in the area of gut health and digestion, which we wouldn't expect necessarily from this product. But it supports the gut lining, it improves nutrient absorption, it reduces gut inflammation. Um, it lowers a protein in the blood, in the body called zonulin, which is the protein that's involved in creating leaky gut. I don't know if you anybody heard of leaky gut syndrome before. It's actually quite common, and so there's irritation. We could talk a long time about this. We won't, but this irritation that comes from lifestyle and stress and diet and medications and drugs and toxins and chemicals, they all cause irritation in the gut lining, which causes the release of this protein called zonulin. And we have our cells in our gut lining that are lined up tight like this. The zonulin tells those cells in our gut lining to open up. And then things that shouldn't pass through now are passing through. That's where they get the term leaky. Instead of being like this, these cells are now like this. And now we're going to develop food sensitivities. We're going to get things, toxins and other things going into our bloodstream and through our body that create a lot of havoc. GLP-2 helps in the repair of the gut lining and the reduction of leaky gut. Um, let's see here. And GIP, three pathways are stimulated by this technology, not just one, like the shot we discussed earlier, but three pathways. The GIP pathway um, is the glucose dependent insulinotropic polypeptide. Anybody want to try to say that? It's involved in nutrient processing and signaling. It helps the body to decide what to do with that incoming fuel, right? The incoming fuel, am I going to store it away, which a lot of our bodies are kind of stuck in the storing away mode, or am I going to utilize these nutrients, this fuel? Am I going to utilize that for energy? And so it helps to flip the switch to start using more of what we're consuming, what's coming in as energy rather than storage. And so that's super exciting. It's also involved, has anti-inflammatory capabilities, also involved in insulin signaling. And that's one of the things that I'm probably most excited as a physician about what I'm seeing in my patients, even in just this early. Just with some of my patients now, we've been using it 2.5 months, almost 3 months in some cases. So not long, right? Especially when you're dealing with blood sugar, you often don't expect major changes in blood sugar and metabolism in us. But I'm seeing this in my patients and already seeing this in lab work, especially in the area of insulin resistance. So, insulin resistance here, and I don't think it's quite as bad as where some of you are, but insulin resistance in the United States is believed to be upwards of 70%. Some argue maybe more, maybe a little less. But here, 1 in 8 people are diabetic, 1 in 3 are pre-diabetic. And those are scary statistics, which are sadly worsening. They're not getting better. They're not plateauing. They are worsening. And here the doctors don't often measure or look for pre-diabetes. They're certainly not looking for insulin resistance. This often happens for years and even decades before somebody becomes a diabetic. This is going on underneath the surface, behind the scenes. People are becoming insulin resistant, and we're seeing that. I'm seeing that in my clinical practice reversing with this amazing technology. And what does blood sugar problems and diabetes especially drive pretty much all the other major killers, right? Cancer, heart disease, cardiovascular disease, um, uh, what do they call cognitive problems, things like Alzheimer's, neurodegenerative conditions. It's too early to think of those big words. Neurodegenerative conditions are impacted by blood sugar disorders. They call Alzheimer's sometimes type 3 diabetes. And this is impacting these blood sugar problems. I often call insulin the hibernation hormone because it just wants to grab a hold of everything when it's elevated, which is the case in insulin resistance, prediabetes, diabetes, except type 1. Insulin levels are elevated, telling our body to store everything, right? And we get stuck in this mode. And even when we try to do better, right? We try to eat better, we try to get more active. I'm going to do some exercise now. And guess what happens to the scale? Not much, right? Because that insulin is still telling the body, hold on, store it, hold on. And it makes it very difficult. And then, of course, it's easy to get frustrated when you're doing all these efforts and nothing seems to be helping. Well, now we have help, not from an injection, but from a natural, organic product, which actually has three ingredients. It has bioactive peptides from salmon, from Norwegian salmon. The peptides, again, we are similar to GLP-1, GLP-2. These are peptides. These are messengers. These are signalers in the body, right? Smaller than proteins, 2 to 50 amino acids in length that tell the body to do certain things, right? They kind of help turn on switches or help signal pathways in the body. So we have the peptides from the Norwegian salmon. We have organic ginger uh, extract in here, organic lemon peel extract. That's the ingredients. Super clean. And that means a lot to me. Breakthrough metabolic wellness. I already covered a lot of this. Effortless appetite control, gut healing, metabolic balance. Studies are showing 6 to 8% lower BMI in just 6 to 8 weeks, or 10% body weight reduction in 6 to 8 weeks. Guess how much of that's muscle with this product? Zero muscle loss. And zero of that is counting water loss, which a lot of things just make us lose water. The scale looks better, right? And so we're excited, but we didn't lose any fat, right? Blood sugar, energy. I think that's one of the things that people notice that aren't expecting it is improved energy. It improves iron uptake in the body. It improves the gut, so people are having better gut health. They're having better mood. Why? Because our gut makes 90% of our serotonin. So if our gut's happier, we're going to be happier, right? No needles, no jabs, no pharmaceutical need, no medical gatekeepers, and we're talking about a quarter of the price, at least here in the US, of GLP-1s that people are purchasing. So um, it's exciting stuff, and this is an exciting technology that I'm happy to be able to share with others. I won't go into much more before I pass this over to Michelle, but it's called Beyond Organic. It has all of these certifications. And when I saw that it was halal certified, when I saw that it was kosher certified, when I saw that not only non-GMO, but it's GMP certified, it's the cleanest of the clean, right? And there's no binders, there's no carrier oils. It is simply the peptide messengers and the other ingredients that I mentioned, the ginger and the lemon peel. And that's all we're dealing with here with a powerful natural technology. I wanted to point out, GLP conversation right now is the hottest conversation. 10%, at least here in the United States, 10% are using GLPs already of some type of injectable. And 30% are searching. They're interested. They're looking into GLPs, and really they're looking for this. In the US, 3 to 5 million internet searches per month are around the topic of GLP. 3 to 5 million each month searching around the GLP conversation. And so this is definitely the time and the right product and the right company to deliver on that. So I got a question in the chat, and I'm going to answer these two questions. Then we're going to wrap up the recording. And then if anybody wants to stay around for just a little bit longer and a few more questions, I'm happy to do that. But let's keep the recording short. All right. A bit about iron and iron for women with heavy menstruation. So this could help in a number of areas. Off the top of my head, I do know that with inflammation, the liver secretes a peptide that interferes with iron absorption. It keeps iron in storage. It blocks iron absorption. I think it's called hepcidin, something along that route. Anyway, so by lowering inflammation, which this product will do, it frees up iron to be able to be utilized. Not only that, but we talked about the gut benefits of the GLP-2, right? And increased all nutrient absorption, not just iron, but it increases all nutrient absorption. And what I have seen already is, and you can see this in our testimonial group. If you're not in the testimonial group, ask to be added because you need to see these testimonials because so many of them are what I call non-scale victories, right? They're people getting parts of their health back that nobody would have guessed would have come from this technology. But we're seeing hormone balancing, right, from these drops. And that's for a number of reasons. One, we're lowering inflammation in the body. Two, we're improving nutrient, improving gut health, but improving almost all hormone imbalance is at least somewhat connected to insulin resistance. So if you look up insulin resistance, always connected to hormone imbalance, and for improving that, we're going to improve hormone balance, which, for example, could help with heavy menstruation, right, in an indirect way. So the salmon are not vaccinated. If you look into some of the organic things that we talked about as far as some of the certifications, that would not be allowed. And so there's probably more questions, and we will get to those as we wrap up this recording. But I appreciate you guys hopping on, and I'm excited to continue this conversation with you more later. You guys take care and have a blessed day.
Durante años se nos ha dicho que el metabolismo es algo muy simple: comer menos, moverse más y esforzarse más. Pero la verdadera salud metabólica no se trata solo de calorías o fuerza de voluntad. Se trata de la comunicación interna del cuerpo. El organismo depende de hormonas mensajeras naturales como GLP-1, GLP-2 y GIP para regular el apetito, favorecer la digestión, mejorar la absorción de nutrientes y mantener un metabolismo saludable. Cuando estas señales funcionan correctamente, el cuerpo trabaja con mayor eficiencia. ¿El problema? Apoyar esas señales de forma natural y eficaz no ha sido fácil hasta ahora. De los prístinos fiordos noruegos proviene un complejo de péptidos bioactivos totalmente naturales, con doble patente, obtenidos de salmón de primera calidad apto para sushi. Respaldado por más de $50 millones invertidos en investigación y estudios clínicos, este ingrediente revolucionario se desarrolló para apoyar las mismas vías metabólicas que el cuerpo ya utiliza de forma natural. Mediante un proceso de extracción patentado, triGLP logra preservar los péptidos bioactivos más potentes en su forma de mayor absorción. ¿El resultado? Una microdosis diaria y precisa con una absorción de hasta el 90%, que ofrece una potencia 10 veces mayor por gota en comparación con los formatos tradicionales. Sin químicos sintéticos, sin estimulación forzada, sin inyecciones dolorosas, solo un complejo de pépticos naturales diseñado para activar GLP-1, GLP-2 y GIP de forma conjunta, tal como lo concibió su cuerpo. 3 vías, una microdosis, unas pocas gotas al día y así de simple. Este es el soporte metabólico de nueva generación. Este es triGLP de ORYGN. Puro, potente, probado.